Hello, everyone. Today we are hosting the talk of Julia Mühl on Gerda Walther, and she is going to talk about the phenomenology of mysticism. Julia Mühl works for Paderborn University, and she is also part of a great center for women philosophers and scientists. And so I look forward to hearing more about Gerda Walther and her beautiful talk. Thanks.
So, Tusi, thank you very much for your invitation for this talk. I'm very happy to present my overview about Gerda Walther's book, Phenomenology of Mysticism. And before I will start with my overview, I would like to give a short introduction into Walther's biography, because there are some interesting sections in her life which explain why Walther starts the step from phenomenology to parapsychology. So I would like to call her introduction from phenomenology to parapsychology. So now I would like to start with the introduction, and I would prefer to read it. So Gerda Walther was a German woman phenomenologist and parapsychologist. She began her studies at the Ludwig Maximilian University in Munich in winter 1915-1916. The aim of her studies was to become a socialist agitator. Therefore, she visited lectures in philosophy, psychology, sociology, national economic, and national law. Because of Alexander Fender's lectures, she became more and more interested in philosophy, psychology, particularly in phenomenology. After only a few semesters in Munich, she traveled to Freiburg to attend the lectures of Edmund Husserl. Upon her arrival, Husserl sent Walther to the philosophical kindergarten, which was led by Edith Stein. After her studies, Walther completed her PhD under the supervision of Alexander Fender. Her dissertation, Ein Beitrag zur Ontologie der sozialen Gemeinschaften, or in English, A Contribution to the Ontology of Social Communities, was finished in 1922. In her dissertation, Walther investigates the essential characteristics of a social community. She identifies the elements that constitute a social community and how individuals are connected within a community. Although Walther chose Fender as her supervisor because she felt more connected to the realistic phenomenology of Munich Circle, Husserl nevertheless published her work in Jahrbuch für Philosophie und phänomenologische Forschung in 1923. In tandem with her dissertation, Walther authored her Phenomenology of Mysticism, which will be focused on this talk today. After a doctorate, Walther wanted to become a professor and began pursuing her habilitation under the supervision of Karl Jaspers in Heidelberg. Due to inflation in Germany, Walther lost her entire fortune that she had inherited from her father, who died in 1990. Thus, Walther was forced to give up her studies in Heidelberg and find another employment. The string of jobs that Walther found gave her entrance in the fields of psychology and later parapsychology. On this basis of her experiences working in a psychological institute, Walther herself wrote articles and worked on lectures on psychological diseases, for example on schizophrenia. Later, her interests shifted to the field of parapsychology. In this field, Walther published hundreds of articles and became a well-known figure, until her death in 1977. Her last monograph was her autobiography, Zum anderen Ufer, which I would like to translate to this other shore, from Marxism and atheism to Christianity, which was published in 1960. So after this short introduction, I would like to start with her book, Phenomenology of Mysticism. As I said before, the aim of this talk is to give an overview of Walther's interest in phenomenology of mysticism. Already in 1920, Walther wrote a manuscript in honor of Alexander Fender's 50th birthday with the title the inner constitution of consciousness of the essence at the core of the personality and of God as the essential ground of the essence. This manuscript analyzed the constitution of a human essence. Walther published a reworked version of this manuscript under the title Phenomenology of Mysticism in 1923. But her interest in grasping God moved more to the forefront of her work than did Constitution of the Human Essence. Despite being raised as an atheist and Marxist, Walther's interest in religious experiences and the existence of God blossomed during her years in Freiburg and Munich. Her personal experiences convinced her that the highest reality and ultimate truth can be found in a religious world. Therefore, Walther wrote her book Phenomenology of Mysticism in her search to uncover the truth and reality of divine being. For Walther, mysticism is a primordial phenomenon, Urphänomen. This sort of phenomenon is a primordial fact that is neither reducible nor deducible from other phenomena. The aim of her book is to analyze the essence of mystical experiences. According to Walther, mystical experiences are direct, physical, lived experiences of God, even if they are imperfect and unilateral. With the help of this analysis, she wants to clarify whether mystical experiences really exist. Herein I will follow Walther's order of presentation, and therefore I would like to start with her investigation of the constitution of persons. As stated earlier, this analysis of the constitution of persons is necessary to understand mystical lived experiences, since an analysis of mystical experience as a species of experiences must be preceded by an analysis of the lived experience in general. This is what Walther is thinking of. Following this, I will present Walther's search for the essential ground of the essence of human beings, which she argues is God. In this part, she explains three things. This is A, mystical grasping of God, B, the lived experience of a human and divine person, and C, the community with God. The last section of this talk will give a critical conclusion of Walther's mystical text and an examination of mystical experiences. The title, Phenomenology of Mysticism, promises that its contents will be a contribution to phenomenology. However, it seems that this promise is not fully kept in her book. So before I will come to this point, I would like to start with the constitution of persons and the analysis of the human essence, which is very important for Gerda Walther, before she will start with the analysis of mystical experiences. So in this section, Walther examines the constitution of persons. She assumes that only persons can have mystical lived experiences. In her view, every person consists of three aspects. This is first, I call it an I center. Maybe you can call it also an ego center. Second, a self. And third, an essence. The I center means that the I, or the ego, is the starting point of lived experiences. The I is the one who experiences. It focuses on objects of any kind in a conscious way. Hence, the I has the characteristic of intentionality. Furthermore, the I center is equipped with self-awareness and volition. With the help of volition, the I has the opportunity to choose new objects to focus on. In this situation, the I is self-determined. The self, however, is an inward psychic background in which the I is embedded. Within this background, various lived experiences flow through the I. Against this background, particular experiences come to the forefront of consciousness to create the current lived experience of the consciousness subject. In addition to the I and the self, there's the essence of the person. The essence is the soul spiritual core of the personality of a person. Since the essence is shown only in a certain lived experiences, It can only be examined with the help of an analysis of the background, which Walther calls Hintergrundanalyse, and an investigation of the source ground. It is in German called Quellgrunduntersuchung. This analysis demonstrates that not every lived experience, which is immersed in the source ground, Quellgrund, leads back to the essence. Hence, it takes some practice to recognize all lived experiences, which are impulses of the essence. If a human being is a person, the essence requires self-awareness and self-determination or self-power of the I center. Thus, the essence can realize itself and become what it is created for. In Walther's view, the essence of a person is a single essence with three aspects: body, soul, and spirit. The essence can be considered from these three sides. Depending on which perspective is taken, the essence is represented in a different way. But they are all interwoven and they penetrate themselves. The essence of the body is the most concrete, most obvious, most basic side of personality. The bodily side of the essence interacts intensively with the soul without being identical with the former. Beside the bodily aspect of the essence, there is the essence as a soul. This one includes the area within a human being, which is between the bodily or vegetative side and the spiritual side. The soul shows itself in lived feelings and emotional lived experiences, also in wishing and striving. These lived experiences rise sensibly from below as from the heart. The last side is the essence as a spirit. This one is a spiritual sphere of light which is inside a human being. It points beyond itself to a spiritual primordial source. A human being experiences itself under certain circumstances as a part of a spiritual world. This essence as a spiritual enables a spiritual being to experience the spiritual reality which is beyond the physical realm of being. With this explanation of the person and its peculiarities, Walther comes to the conclusion that a human person could only be fully developed if this person strives from harmony between its body and its soul spiritual existence. This focus of this section was on the understanding of a person and its peculiarities. In Walther's view, this was necessary for the next step, which is the search for the essential ground of the essence. So as I said, the next step is the search for the essential ground of the essence, which in Walther's view is God. So with the help of Walther's analysis of the person and its essence, Walther searches for the essential ground of the essence, which is in her view God. Hence, she pursues the following three questions. First, how can we grasp God in a mystical or religious way? Second, how can we experience either a human or divine person? And third, how can we be in a community with God? These are the main topics of the last third of her book, Phenomenology of Mysticism. Now I want to start with the first question, how we experience either a human or a divine person. Oh, I'm sorry. I switched. I want to start with the first one, which is how we grasp God in a mystical and religious way. So in this section, Walther's consideration of grasping God in a mystic way starts again with the I. So as we see here, it is important to have this analysis of the person to understand why we start with the I. So the I is the subject who experiences God. Therefore, we will start with the I. This sort of lived experience works not as a rational intermediary understanding. The experience of God is unreflective and direct. In such lived experiences, the divine stream is experienced within oneself. It appears as if it is open up a hidden source inside oneself, which lets the divine rays flow into the human beings from outside, from another human being. From this fulfillment, the I turns to its own essence, but it sees, beginning of a quotation, itself through that other light and feels with the eyes and the heart of God, and now it can endure the full sight of itself. Since the eye relies on the heart and the eyes of God in order to see itself as it is in itself, as God sees it, it beholds its own essence in full purity from this other point, which is not an external observation point. End of quote. Hence, the truth of the self can only be seen in full knowledge through God. Walther states that God is the reason for knowing one's own truth and essence. Without the experience of God, without grasping God, it is not possible to experience one's own essence completely and in purity. Now I want to go to the second question, how we experience a human or a divine person. In this step, Walther, she wants to explain this experience, and therefore she asked how we can experience other subjects which are persons. In her view, it is not possible to experience other persons with the help of phenomena which are expressed by the body. So in German, we would say Ausdrucksphänomene. This is the reason why her theory differs from the theory of Stein's concept of empathy or Husserl's theory. The essence of a divine person can also be experienced directly within its charisma, as well as the own essence of a human being and the foreign essence of the other human beings. In her view, it is possible in a telepathic way. This is the first variant on how we could experience a human or divine person. The second way is to receive a calling, she called it Mitteilung, from God, which she calls a divine addresses, göttliche Ansprachen. God can reveal itself through the lived experience of divine addresses within the human beings as a consciousness being, i.e. as a person in this sense. Due to the facts of such answers of God, the personal qualities of God are directly apparent. From this, it follows that God reveals itself not only as a super-spiritual luminous power and heat-radiating love in the mystery experiences, but also as a knowing and wanting person in all the objects addressed to human beings in his inner being. Walther, in contrast to other mystics, represent a different concept of personality, which allows us to understand God as a person. God is a person in the sense of a unity of an infinite, all-embracing essence and an omniscient and omnipotent I-center. So the next step, or the next question, was how we can live in a community with God. Only if we understand God as a person, we can build a personal community or relationship with God. This community with God can only exist in a higher sense if God is a person. Walther describes the constitution of a community in her dissertation. To create a community, it is necessary that two or more persons are unified. Her concept of inner joining is the central characteristic of a community. This concept of inner joining extends to the community between God and human beings. But only if there is an independent act of unification between those three eye points, it can be called unification in a narrow sense. Furthermore, there must be a reciprocal fact of inner joining between the members of the community. That means that it is required that every subject wants to join with all the other members of the community, so that there is a reciprocal effect of one member on the other, even if one person is God. But for a human being, it is not possible to create this community. A human person can only prepare herself by concentration and self-control in order to receive love and spiritual light as a gift of grace. The greatest experience, however, which a human being can realize in a relation to other human beings occurs when human beings are joined with each other within their deepest sphere of existence within God. Then the essence of a human being pours not only into the essence of another human being, the spiritual ray which God sends out into all of them merges with the spiritual ray of the others. So this was my short or my overview about Gerda Walther's book, Phenomenology of Mysticism. Now I want to come to my conclusion. And I would like to say that all in all, we have seen that Walther wrote this book to search for the truth and existence of divine beings and finds the ultimate truth in the religious world. For analyzing the mystical experiences, she wants to use the phenomenological method. Certainly, this applies for her analysis of the person and the I, where she examines the inner structure and the essence of persons. In this sense, Walther follows Husserl's and Fenner's ontological phenomenological analysis of essences to understand the structure of persons, so that this investigation is helpful to understand Walther's dissertation on social communities. So therefore, this book is a helpful extension for her dissertation. In my view, it seems that Walther's primary goal is the analysis of the person and the I. It appears that her examination of divine lived experience is only attached at the analysis of the person. For an analysis of divine lived experiences, Walther uses her personal experiences. Therefore, this analysis is rather a descriptive analysis than a phenomenological analysis. It is hard to recognize that Walther uses the ontological phenomenological method in relation to the examination of divine lived experiences, because she argues with her personal experiences. And some of her argumentations start with presumptions, but there are no reason for them. For example, Walther uses the presumption that only persons can have mystical experience. But there is no reason for that. Mm-hmm. This is why it is very difficult to comprehend her description of those lived experiences. So all in all, this book consists of an ontological phenomenological analysis of a person, and it is a first approach to investigate and describe divine lived experiences. Nevertheless, Walther was one of the women phenomenologists who tries to understand and describe the experience of God in a scientific way. So this was my talk. Thank you very much for your attention. And, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Mühl. I mean, this lesson was very, very interesting, and I wish we could know more about her works, and she could be published more, translated more also in English. I know that there's some translation in Italian, but not enough.
Yes.
And yeah, this overview was incredibly helpful, I think, and so I look forward to the session of question and answers that is going to take place on Monday with you and Dr. Parker. That would be very interesting, and we'll see if we'll gather questions from our online audience and students and so on. So yeah. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you very much. Yes, thanks.
Thanks.